Good evening and welcome to the Lifeline on Equa TV Africa, the program that x-rays legal issues as they affect us in our day-to-day lives. We sincerely apologize that in the last 2 weeks we were not on air. We are really very sorry that we failed for these last 2 weeks, but we thank God that we are back on air today. Today we are going to be discussing the issue of defection of candidates, legal issues arising. We'll also take a brief look at the right to personal liberty of the person. So it is no longer news that 2023 general elections are by the corner, and that parties have conducted primaries and got their candidates that will represent them in the various positions from the House of Assembly, the state houses of assembly, the governorship seat, the House of Representatives seats, the House of Senate, and the big one, the presidency. These primaries have been conducted, and we also saw many issues that came up. People left from one party to the other. Others, just before the primaries will be done, they withdrew their membership and withdrew their contest and found love in other political parties, thereby defecting to those parties. Others actually participated in those primaries, and after completion, upon being unsuccessful, they decided to truncate from their political parties where they have always been, and they also participated in the primaries and went to and found love in new political parties. What is the legal position of these actions by politicians? Well, politicians are like harlots. They are in love with one political party today, and the next day you find them in another. And sometimes they even have reason to lampoon the party they just left, forgetting that they have been there for many years. And one wonders whether these things are just coming up at those times. Today, to discuss this topic, we have in the studio a learned gentleman, Barrister UK Osim. He is a legal practitioner and a human rights activist. Sir, you are welcome.
I'm grateful for having me in your studio this evening, and I believe this discussion will give enlightenment to our viewers. Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes. So, thank you. Like I said earlier, we'll start with the right to personal liberty. So, Barrister Osim, yes, what does it mean when you say right to personal liberty? What does it mean? What does it entail?
Okay. First of all, we have to understand that to every provision of the Constitution, there's a reason behind it. Now, Chapter 4 of the Constitution captures all that we call fundamental human rights. And one of the rights therein in Section 35 is right to personal liberty, which gives every Nigerian citizen right to live freely without any molestation from any angle, government or individual. But still, the right to personal liberty limits the taking certain laws into your hands. That you are free to maybe play football does not mean you are free to commit foul. Let me use it as a footballer. Or you are not also free to use your hand when this is football. So personal liberty means having freedom to achieve, having freedom to become, having freedom to have all-round immunity against any form of harassment. But it has an exception to the rule, because where your liberty ends is where another person's liberty begins. So right to personal liberty is such that to the extent that the law says you cannot do this, you are free to do all things. That is the communal or community understanding of the right to personal liberty. So you give the person whose right has been given by the law the liberty to become the best he can be in the country of his origin. For instance, a Nigerian will not be deterred from becoming a Christian or becoming a footballer or becoming an actor. You are free to live your life the way you want it. That's the purpose of right to personal liberty, sir.
Does it include, for instance, that you are here in Jos, you want to move from Jos to Lagos, you can. You want to move from Jos to Sokoto, you can. Does it include that?
Definitely. That's the liberty. You are not supposed to be molested by any person under the constitutions of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You are free to be wherever you want to be as far as you are a citizen of this nation. And you are not criminally inclined. That is the extent to which the liberty entails.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, generally, they say to every general rule,
There
is an exception or there are exceptions. This is so much that in a law class, somebody said, to every general rule, there's an exception.
Yes.
And then another person said, but God can do anything. And somebody said, no, God cannot do anything. There is also an exception to that. And others were angry that how can you be saying God is limited? And the answer simply was, God cannot lie. God cannot sin.
Very well.
In his own very nature, he cannot lie. So it's a general rule an exception to the general rule that God can do anything or all things. So now, to this right to personal liberty,
yes, sir.
Are there any exceptions, or is it one exception?
Plenty of it, sir. For instance, the liberty of a criminal is limited to the time he commits a crime, because the law allows for detention. You know, the essence of this right to personal liberty is that you are not to be limited from achieving the aims of a well-intentioned goal. For instance, you becoming the governor of your state. Nobody will stop you, whether you are from a poor family or a rich family. You that wants to go to school and go to the university, nobody will say no because your father is rich or your father is poor. You know, it gives liberty to achieve. But once you go contrary to the rules of law, you are limited. That's where your liberty becomes checkmated. And when your liberty is checkmated, you now become a subject to being being governed by the exceptions that we have mentioned earlier. For instance, if somebody commits a crime and simply because he commits a crime robs him the right to continually being free in the society, in the sense that if you allow him, he will do more. So the best place to be is to be in the custodian of the correctional centers, or the police may detain the person. You know, so when somebody is detained, his liberty is limited. Another one is when somebody contracts certain diseases that are transmissible, and for the sake of being transmitted to the general masses, the person will be, his right to personal liberty will also be limited to checkmate the hazards of his contracting that sickness. So there are certain things that will limit the liberty of a person to the extent that the law says you are not to be limited, sir. Yes.
Okay. You mentioned two persons suffering from sickness.
Yes.
Persons who are convicted and sentenced in the execution of order of court.
Yes, sir.
Are there more exceptions?
Yeah. Well, you know, when we started this program, you said something that politicians move from one party to the other. You know, if you look at section 33 of the Electoral Act, you don't just change candidates at will.
No.
I'm coming. I want because I want to broaden it. Because when you think you can impose somebody, because by imposition you are limiting the liberty of the other person to become what he intends to do. So when your actions or activities tend to go against the interests of others, there's a law. The law says no. It becomes an exception to your personal liberty.
Okay.
There's an instance now The other day we went to a location to see a site. Somebody woke up and then wanted to block the access road because he claimed it has been sold to him. And when we got there, and by that singular act, you have restrained the freedom of the other persons. So our actions and inactions are supposed to be as in such that we don't go contrary to the law. So when your activity tends to go contrary to the law, you are infringing on the right to another person's liberty. So to that extent, it is checkmated.
Okay. So does this also involve disobedience of court order, where the court makes an order and then the person who is directed to act, to refrain from acting, violates that order? Can such person's right be right to personal liberty be limited?
Okay. Now, in the context of Nigeria, where we are, we have, I'm not saying that it's in existence, we have this common understanding that law in Nigeria is meant for either the rich or for the poor. If a poor man is caught stealing, let's say, a loaf of bread, you know the justice will stand. If a rich man is caught stealing a loaf of bread, they will brand it as a star. He wanted to tell something. So the liberty of the poor man is checkmated by the acts he conducts. And while that of the rich man is so much celebrated as if it's something new. So the law in Nigeria posts, if I should use that language, certain derogation to other people's liberty. For crying out loud, sir, the situation we find ourselves is such that when one looks at it, it looks as if the law, the execution of the law is meant for certain persons and not for everybody. So to that extent, that inability to execute justice infringes on the liberty of others. That is to that extent, sir. So what that means is that certain activities that we embark robs others of their personal liberty.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Another exception that comes to mind is for people who are below the age of 18 years, for the purpose of their education. How does that operate?
Okay. Now, it's a painful thing, you know. When we came on A, you mentioned that I'm a human rights activist. Yes, sir. It's prevalent in certain sectors of our country. In fact, I read an interview of a lady, a Nigerian, an educationist, who said it became as a taboo when herself, being the first girl to go to secondary school in this modern era, in a community in Nigeria. That means by certain practices, be it religion or some other inclinations, some persons under 18 are robbed of their right to be free in their own country. And that is an abuse of persons' right to personal liberty. And when it happens, many of us don't have the voice to say, nobody to complain to. That's the painful aspect of it, because we are either being carried away by customs or by religion or the other norms that we may not even rise to say because it has been in practice for generations before now. So it's painful. Okay, let me give you an instance. I am a politician, okay, but not a practicing one. Now, in the developed climes, when you turn 18, you log in your name to receive your permanent voter's card. But in Nigeria, we open windows for somebody is turning 18 tomorrow, but they have shut him out. That is a discrimination against that person. It infringes on his right to personal liberty. He cannot go to do certain things because of rules by those who know better. Now, if it comes to being practiced worldwide, that means we have disenfranchised so many persons. So that's why some civil societies are saying, look, leave it open. If you want to open an account in a bank, let me ask a question. Would they tell you until You go there, put your biometrics up there, and then they'll give you a bank account. In fact, instantly they'll give you an ATM card, customized in your name. Just they'll ask you, okay, what's your passcode? That is what's supposed to be in operation in Nigeria. But because we trade on the unfortunate incidents of others, we limit people's right to personal liberty, and that is not expected to continue because we are growing and not going backwards, sir.
Your last word on the personal liberty, right to personal liberty.
My last word is, let us practice the Constitution as it is. If Constitution says do this, except when somebody goes contrary to that provision, you can't limit it. Yeah. It is they call it fundamental human right. Fundamental means it is very, very important, sir.
You cannot be derogated from.
Exactly.
Yes. So this now starts where we draw the curtain on the right to personal liberty. We now go into cross-carpeting by candidates, legal issues arising. So now don't forget that by 6:30 the phone lines will be open, so you could call in to make your contributions. So, Barrister Osim.
Yes.
Now, what is cross-carpeting or defection from one party to the other by candidates?
You know, this question made me laugh. You know why I'm laughing? Because Nigeria lacks political principle. Let me use where we borrowed our democracy from. In America, you see somebody who has been a Democrat for 70 years, one party. But in Nigeria, once the rules are not amenable to you in party A, you find friends in party B where they can allow you to do certain things.
Is it the rules of the wind?
That's in Nigeria, it's the rules of the wind.
No, I mean, it's either the rules or the wind. The rules are the rules as we know, standard.
No,
but the wind,
no, sir.
There's the wind may blow from any
it's the rules. In Nigeria, that's the rules, sir. Okay, let's assume this. During the last primaries, I had the privilege of meeting a friend who was what they call them now, delegate in one of these political parties. And when he came back, he said,
with dollars.
Sir, let me just finish. So when he came back to Jos, he said, look, he has learned something with this Abuja event, that if you stay in one place, you will just be a poor politician. And I asked him what happened. He said when they went there, they were told to vote a particular candidate. But when they went there and discovered that dollars were being shared, they have to overlook the naira that was given to them before they left there to now participate. And the more camps you go, the more money you get. So, sir, if we have a principle guiding these political parties, do you think such harlotry, such betrayal, such
dollarization,
can happen, sir? It's not possible, because as far as I'm concerned, I may have an inclination to certain political views. It does not restrain me from having my political principle intact. if I belong to party A, I'm a party A member, but if the principles or what they are standing for does not fit me, when I go, I will not cross carpet as a person, but I know what to do, because what matters is who you vote for. That's why they call it secret ballot. Now, your conscience will be the one that will guide you, not you, the money. Okay, but now it's as if it's a business. If you go to party A and it does not work, the next thing is you find where you can buy people over. Let me use that language, buy. I'm not apologetic about it. In Nigeria, you go and buy votes. Think about it. If we have a country that have up to 120 million people, can't we think
200.
outside the box? 200 million, okay, 200 million people. We are talking about adults, sir. We're not talking about who can be voted for.
All right, yeah.
Can't we get
The register.
Yes. Can't we get somebody who can come outside of the box of these people who have been there since several years? But they keep moving from one party to another to make sure they achieve that goal. It's not supposed to be like that, sir. If we need to have a stable political system, I think the Electoral Act should be amended to include consistency in one political party. Not just being here today, in the next 45 days, in the next 3 days, you are moving to achieve a selfish interest that does not pay or take care of the interests of the general masses. So it's a bigotry. Let me use that language. That is a bad one in Nigeria.
And so now we are talking about cross-carpeting by candidates. What does cross-carpeting mean?
One word: abandoning your first love and joining an unknown love to fulfill your selfish desire. Cross-carpeting means jumping from, we call it a sinking boat, to a boat that is surviving, instead of saving the boat that is sinking. Let me call party names now. Now, because of the hardship the present administration have caused people, people think PDP or any other party, Labour or any other party, can offer them a better opportunity to now win elections. But, if it is a place that people check track records, you can find in any of these parties somebody who can make amends. It is not written on the forehead, sir. You check the track records. You check the ability of the persons. I am not saying this party was good or this party was not good, but we know that there were some appointees in some past governments that performed very well. Why can't you continue with that person, even if it's not in your party? So the whole essence of cross-carpeting is to move to a place you can continue being relevant, not what you are going to offer, just personal relevancy to the system. It is not what they offer to us, but what they are benefiting from being there.
So now,
Yes, sir.
what does the law allow because for some of these candidates, they were in certain political parties, they contested as aspirants to become candidates. And when they failed, they now left those parties and went over to other parties where they felt they could have space.
Yeah.
And some have actually secured spaces. Some, on the eve of the primaries,
yes.
they withdrew their interest in the contest and withdrew their membership and went to other parties. Others actually participated. So is there any difference? What is the legal position?
Okay. Now, Section 40 of the Constitution allows for right to freedom of movement.
Yeah.
And if you read down, provided that movement will give you leverage to join any political party, Are you getting it?
Yeah.
The same thing, freedom to peaceful assembly, that's Section 40, right to freedom, right to peaceful assembly. It allows you to have a gathering, political gathering, spiritual gathering, and otherwise, it does not stop you from cross-carpeting. What I envisage in a situation of this nature is that our electoral act is weak. For instance, where the act says in section 32, which prohibits double nomination, that is having, like some of the politicians, they had a nomination for presidency and then they returned their senatorial nomination paper. That's an offense already. The Electoral Act prohibits it. Had it been the Electoral Act specifically said, once this is done, you'll be arrested and you'll be jailed. How many of them have been arrested? Nobody. So there's laxity in the law. That's where the problem begins. So if the law allows certain things, then who are we to question it? Because they are the one implementing the law. You remember what happened when they say serving officers will not be delegates. It was fought. People thought that would be the end of delegate to primaries. But at the end of the day, some court said it is against, it's unconstitutional, is this and this. But when you look at that section 40 of the Constitution, it made mention of, to the extent that the electoral, in fact, specifically said the Electoral Act, the provisions of the Electoral Act at the end of it. So what it envisages is that one day, the situation we find ourselves in the last nominations will play out. But there are no strict, in law there's a strict offenses,
strict liability
offenses, and then so if it is made a strict liability offense, then the day you are picking your second nomination card, you know you have already failed. But it gives room. And then when it says within 45, within 15, within 30 days, that means this thing can happen as far as you are not caught up with the period stipulated by law. So there's a room for change. There's a room for that laxity to happen. So that's where that cross-carpeting is, in quotes, allowed. But it's not supposed to be so, sir.
Well, viewers will go on a short break. When we resume, the phone lines will be open, and then we'll continue looking at the specific for those who actually participated in primaries for one position and then went to pick up nominations or candidature for other positions. So we'll go on a short break. Welcome back. We are on the lifeline on Equa TV Africa. We are discussing the topic cross-carpeting of candidates, legal issues involved. And our guest today has been Barrister Osim, a legal practitioner and human rights activist. And we have been discussing this issue. Yes, Barrister Osim.
Yes, sir.
What is the position of the law with respect to a person who contested? For instance, who contested for one position at the primaries and then left that position to go for another position in the same party or that same position in another political party. For instance, someone contested for presidency in APC, and when he lost, he now went to contest for Senate or to pick the candidature of Senate for the senatorial seat in a state, what is the legal position on this?
Now, specifically, the Electoral Act, as amended, frowns at it. You are expected to be nominated for one office. And once you are nominated, you are nominated. But you know, in Nigeria, so many things are allowed, especially when you are very close to the corridors of power. But I know with recent happenings, the lawmakers will find it appropriate to look at the incidents and place at par with the implication on our Electoral Act, because it rubbishes the mind and the intent of the people after presenting a candidate, and then you later on, I'll use that, let me be wrong, buy over the person's candidature, sir. Is it that that person is not worthy to sit in that position? Because you are aiming at a higher position when you left, and it failed. Why wouldn't you try again next time? Like they will say, instead of superimposing yourself on the person who the people had ordinarily chosen. So the Electoral Act prohibits double nomination. That is Section 32. What it means is that if our law implementers are really willing, they will question the veracity or the reason why such a person would drop for another person to take over. That is substitution, when the person is still alive. You know, the law says, except when somebody dies, you cannot substitute him. So is it that the person held that nomination in trust for the other person? Okay, go and try, and when you fail, you come back. Or because these are things that doesn't happen in the developed climes, and we intend to look up to those people to perfect our own act in Nigeria, sir. But because not many persons have the power, when I say financial muscle, to pursue their rights to the end. That's why when they are given a wave of money, you see them, okay. But I think the last list that was released by INEC, some of those prominent persons had their names not listed. And I think they are trying to do some, do some in-house amendment. And another thing is, they will tell you this is our party's affair.
Yeah.
That's according to our constitution, an in-house affair, which rubbishes the mentality, the good nature, goodwill of people. What we are saying is, you must not be there at all time. It's like a contest. If you try and you don't succeed, you try and try again. Our sitting president tried how many times to be the president? I think on the fourth trial, he became president. So, must you now continue to be in the Senate? Must you continue to be as a governor? It does not make sense. Sir. So, we need to look at the constitutional right of the person, especially if the person is willing to fight. But in Nigeria, we know the norms. If you are given enough money, you can even deny your parental.
Well, but I think it has to do also with the principles of particular persons, even though there may be pressure. But there were situations where a sitting governor, yes, was contesting for the seat of president, and he got nomination form for presidency, and then went, and then got his appointee. His appointee ostensibly. The appointee was holding the seat in trust for him.
For him, yes.
Then he went for presidency. When he came back, the person who got the senatorial seat candidature wrote a letter of withdrawal. that he is withdrawing from the race. And unfortunately, the Electoral Act allows
Yes.
voluntary withdrawal, which is also part of the right to liberty you were talking about. To do an act and refrain from doing it, you are free to do. So with that freedom, they decided I'm no longer a candidate.
Yes.
Then the party now say, okay, we're going to have a
rerun,
a convention to get another person as a candidate for our party. And then the governor now emerges.
Yes.
Now,
sir, let us not shut the mouth of the law. You see, the essence of Section 35 on withdrawal of candidature has a time frame. If the act happens within the time frame given, the essence of lawmakers in Nigeria is to suit their personal whims, sir. I'm sorry I'm not apologetic about it. It's to suit their personal whims. That's why if you see these laws we are looking at, my brother, the way what we are saying. As a lawyer, there are certain things that nobody can talk to you about.
Yeah.
But bring a man on the street, they will rubbish the person. As a politician who have this cash to throw about, what the young man who is political appointee is looking for is means of livelihood. They have impoverished people. But Mali said is what do you call it again?
Mental slavery.
Mental slavery. A perpetuate mental slavery. You can do it. Who told you that check in the climb? The sitting Prime Minister of Austria is a nursing mother. You know what it means to be a nursing mother. The president of Macron, yes, is less than 50. When Obama became the president of America, how old was he? So when they tell you as a young person, you're meant to carry our bags, and then you are destined to it, you can't become anything. That's why we are running a circle in Nigeria. Unapologetic about it. But the truth remains that until we choose not to play second fiddle, because when somebody withdraws, he has disqualified himself for future elections. So I'm sorry to use that language, because if I am in the position, I'll make in that vicinity, we fight it to make sure that the person is not capable, is not worthy to become what he has withdrawn from. So we need to check the laws and make amends, because the laws they make for us presently is to suit them. And many of us can do nothing because the law is already the law. You can't question it. Section 315 of the Constitution says it becomes part of the legal system.
Yeah. So now, how about people who have defected from their political parties?
Yes.
They contested, like there is a candidate who contested for governorship in APC. He lost, and then that's at the primaries.
Yes.
He lost and then juncated to Labour Party and wants to get a candidature of Labour Party. What is the position of the law? Can he validly do that?
Because within the ambit of Electoral Act, if the withdrawal, if the resignation or jumping from one party, let me use the proper language, to another, is allowed by the party's constitution. They will tell you, first of all, they will tell you it's an in-house thing. And some of these parties are seeking for recognition. And if you have a good name that can sell, why not? It's an opportunity to sell your party. So it is not that the law says it is all right, but their in-house arrangement makes it all right. In Nigeria, politics is not about interest, it's all about personal interest, not national interest. I'm sorry to use that language. It's all about what I can get. Okay, let me stun you, sir. Do you know that when it was time to deregister some political parties, some people were angry with it? Why? Because of the small subvention they normally give them during campaign period. A party that does not even have, you only have a national secretariat. There's no community presence, because you are going to get something. So they go to court and ask the court to void the registration. So just because of the money. So we are yet to build a system where if you move from one political party to another, you'll be required to rise from the crucibles to the top. But in Nigeria, sir, you can't. Okay, let's assume you know what's happening. Yes. One of our presidential candidates has been here, there, and back here. Is that normal? Yeah. And people are clapping for him in the place he's presently. That's not politics. Must you achieve your aim by prostituting? No. If the law says, okay, you are here, be there until you rise to the... That's why I like what Germany does. You must rise to the point that you can now vie for the chancellorship of... You don't just jump in and then you must have shown your capability, pedigree. Maybe that's why the democracy is different. I mean, the kind of democracy they practice there is different from what we are doing in Nigeria. You must have a pedigree, sir. What have you to contribute? So, cross-carpeting from one party, one is for achieving your personal aim, and then for relevancy. You know, Labour Party I'm mentioning now is like a movement. Not because of the party, but because of what people think. Now, for the man that has moved from APC, where he moved from, they think is a sinking boat. So the only place he can maintain relevance is the movement that is on.
No, but is it really that they think it's a sinking boat, or that they were unable to secure the candidature? Because if they felt it was a sinking boat, they would have not participated in the primaries. And mind you,
yes, sir,
the amounts for the various positions were very high. For presidency, 100 million.
For some parties.
No, for APC particularly. APC, 100 million. Governorship, 50 million, and down the line like that. So yes, their amounts were huge. They didn't see it as sinking boats. If they did, they wouldn't even purchase the form in the first place. But they saw it as a viable party that they will ride on its wings and to achieve whatever they wanted. Yes. So when they were unable to secure the ticket, they now felt they will leave and go to where they will secure the ticket.
Okay.
So now, I do not think it's so much of it being a sinking boat, but seeking for relevance by all means.
You know why I use that sinking boat? Yeah. Now, when you go to a place you think you are going to make it cause a visible change, and then they will recycle the same old people who are creating problem in the system. At least if you have a future and you think you can make an impact and you think you have what it takes as a followership to make that impact, the next thing is to move. You have to move naturally because you can't continue being in a place. Okay, now let's assume you're on the plateau now and you have seen some policy misplacement that has happened, which if you go to the street now and ask them, how do you rate this man's performance, they will tell you he has failed woefully, and you still want to continue there. And you know that people have been looking at you as somebody who can perform. The only place you can try your luck, if I use that language, is to go to a party that will offer you a platform to try. That's where relevancy comes in. So if it is strictly political principles, okay, we will sit back, support whoever.